Good morning, everyone. Looks like we have a pretty short agenda today. Rah, rah, rah. I just finished a 3-day trip to Michigan. So I'm thrilled to be back home.
Good morning.
Morning, Brian.
How are you?
Good.
You got time for a phone call this afternoon?
Who, me? Why?
Yeah.
What's the big deal? I'm not important. Sure.
Fire assessment.
Sure.
Sean and George met with the fire assessment team last week. They were on site when you were gone. So I want to get you an opportunity to have a Zoom meeting with them.
Are you talking about wildfire assessment and the fire ban or what?
No, I'm talking about the fire assessment of the authority.
Oh, the assessment of the fire authority. Yes, please. Yeah,
I just
I'd
need
be
some
happy
dates.
to do that.
Maybe some dates this week and next that work for you for a Zoom meeting with them.
As you can imagine, since I was out Thursday morning, I have multiple requests for this afternoon, but they're all short requests, and I'd love to. Yeah.
Cool.
Do
Right.
you have but the deal is, so far everybody has said, hey, can we meet sometime this afternoon? So this is your big chance to, be the first on the block to nab an actual time.
I will call you at 2. How's that sound?
2 o'clock sounds good. So how long do you think it will take?
A couple minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll block out 15 minutes.
We just need to talk calendar. We just need to talk calendar. That's all.
Oh, okay. All right. Good enough. Anybody else have a similar request, Peter?
I just have a reminder that I had sent you an email or two asking for your edits on that letter. You were intending to send them last week, but it didn't get attached.
Oh, the MOU. Yeah, I found that this morning and I sent it to the wrong person. So I'll send it to you as soon as I get done. It was
Okay.
the MOU with Summit County. Is that correct?
Yep,
That was
correct.
one of them. That was one. And then there were two. Yeah.
Yeah, the other letter, whenever you get to it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was less important, but the MOU is done and I will send it while we're sitting here.
Sounds good.
I'm sure Steve Coffin wonders what that letter was he got. He has no idea. Because I owe him a couple things too.
Right.
After the trip. I see George is online. Good morning, George.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
Perfect.
I just had my desk wasn't quite set up and things got a little hairy there for a moment, but here I am. Okay, so while we wait for the full board, I think I'm going to go ahead and address the Well, let's get started. It's August 3rd. It's 9 o'clock. This is our regularly scheduled Board of County Commissioners meeting. The first item,
Is Sean with us today? Sorry to interrupt.
I am not aware that he is.
Supposed to be. I talked with him
Okay.
yesterday.
Just didn't see him, that's all. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
No worries. The first thing on the agenda is administrative approval of marijuana licenses. I did have a chance to look through that. I note that staff is recommending approval and they are approved.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is public comment. And why don't we just hold off for just a moment and get the whole team here. When we do call public comment, to those of you watching, you can click participants, click raise hand. In fact, you can raise your hand now and we'll just wait for Sean to show up. I'm sure if you are here to speak, you'd like to have all three of us hear you.
Sean just showed up.
Good morning. So let's go ahead and open up public comment now. If you are here and would like to make a comment, you can click participants, click raise hand, and we'd love to hear what's on your mind. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close public comment. Next thing on the agenda is county commissioner updates. Who wants to lead this one off?
I'll jump in. I haven't got a lot to report. I did have a flurry of meetings kind of at the tail end of last week with CDOT and had a lot to do with some of it was like, Floyd Hill stuff coming out. And then we had a meeting with Director Liu and some others regarding impacts on I-70 and the I-70 corridor as a result of Glenwood Canyon. And that was on Friday afternoon late. And it was, as you all know from watching the news and stuff, it was really serious. They were seeing stuff coming from as far down as 2,000 feet above. There's a lot of unstable stuff up there. They could have more come down. Potentially as big as what they've already had come down. It broke off pieces of the cantilever decks and lanes. So it's a major destruction to the Glenwood Canyon, which doesn't affect us except for where people are going and traveling. And they were talking about they have one lane through that's just for themselves now, and it's actually driving over the top of up to 20 to 30 feet of debris on top of the highway. And it filled the river in places as high as the railroad bed, and the river's trying to rechannelize itself, so they don't know what it's going to do, which they can't control, to undermine more highway and create more problems, and the railroad as well. And they talked about it being, they were just trying to get us maybe back to one lane each direction, and they didn't know how soon that would be at all. They didn't have a clue. And they were talking about trying to get back to normal, not this year, but maybe sometime next year. It was pretty stunning what I was hearing. They are flying helicopters and doing stuff and looking at the canyon wall and recognizing they have the potential for ever greater kind of catastrophe to that transportation corridor anytime. So it was pretty shocking to listen to. I had no idea that it was that severe and even from watching the news last night, I didn't get that, but they're, anyway, so I thought I'd share that because they're suspending, um, I don't know if they're suspending or slowing down and moderating the jobs they have going on US 50, 285 and places like that in order to allow them to run at the fullest capacity possible to try to circumvent and get around that area. Uh, and I, so that's pretty much it. That's what I got out of it. And then I kind of forgot about everything else I was working on after I heard that. It was kind of like, oh, Mount St. Helens, and I had fortunately, I did not ask them, hey, is that going to impact our Floyd Hill funding? And I thought that would be really tacky to ask that question at that moment. So, and I have no idea. And yes, they are seeking federal disaster funds to help try to start mitigating it.
Thanks.
Yeah, just add to that real quick. I talked to Steve Harrelson on Friday morning, and the site of the slide is actually luckily above where the water comes out from the power plant. And he said had the dam, the slide was, he said was like 30,000 cubic yards, or insane amount of material, had been in the mainstream of the river, they could have lost the highway. But he said it blocked the entire highway, or blocked the river rather, and the river pulled up behind it. But that's the section between the lake and where the power plant outlet comes, where it's kind of a trickle this time of the year anyway. So yeah, they really dodged a bullet with that. But yeah, he was kind of like, it's all hands on deck, and this is our primary focus for a long time.
Right. And I think it was Friday night, and it sounded like, and Sean, maybe you heard more from him on this, but because they didn't say much about it, but they said something about the power plant itself was impacted in some manner, whether it's flow or something, that they lost power, but it was like for a period of time and they could get it back up or something, but I'm not really, but I just said more than I know, I think more than I heard. So I'm not sure it's accurate.
Do you have anything else, Randy?
Nope, that's enough.
Yeah, I just had a quick update about the U.S. Forest Service wildland mitigation project that's to take place in Beaverbrook. I spoke to one of the residents who lives on the same ranch. There's a road access issue, and anyway, long story short, we're looking into ways that maybe there maybe need to be some improvements done on the private road operation take place, and that might be a way to entice the private landowner to allow the mechanical removal of the clear cut that's happening. And spoke to and one of the names happens to be Jay Jackson, who he's helping out with the project too. So that's really all I have to add.
I don't know about everybody else, but I think I caught maybe 25% of that.
Yeah, I'm sitting at the car dealership and the internet here isn't very good. So I saw Beth shut my video off, and we'll see what we can manage.
Okay. Well, at some point, I'm sure we'll be able to hear the more full version of that, something with Beaverbrook. I don't have much on my list. Kind of road and bridge challenges this week. I have heard from 2 folks who live in the Saddleback Mountain area who are having a lot of water enter their properties from the public road system. I have, of course, forwarded those on to our road and bridge staff, and they're discussing them. I am going to go and get a tour from Ann Means, who is the president of the Saddleback Mountain District HOA. That'll happen later this week. And I know there was another, I heard from somebody on South Spring Gulch, and I assume that road conditions everywhere are in pretty bad shape, and just maybe in advance want to thank our road and bridge team. It's going to be well, per Carl, a hard few weeks. We know we had that retaining wall failure on Guanella Pass, which isn't really mine to report. It was all reported to us. I don't think I have anything else. Maybe worth mentioning that the COVID budget group, I think we've mentioned this already once, but we have been talking with the rec district about a behavioral health program aimed at our community using CARES dollars that the rec center would do. And we have received that proposal. I don't think that the team has evaluated it, but that should be in front of you next week is my guess. And I don't think I have anything else. So I'm hearing nobody else with anything else, Brian. Why don't we go ahead and have your update?
Yeah, why don't we, you mentioned Guanella Pass Road, so why don't we segue into that? I know that Carl and his team are on standby and we have any questions. We got a text from him on Sunday morning after the Saturday evening rock wall failure on that road. I think you probably already know that that was a state funded and installed improvement that falls to us to maintain. I know Carl and his team have reached out to an engineering firm to have the area analyzed to determine what kind of designs may be necessary for a permanent fix there. But it looks like Carl just got brought over in Stoy in case you guys got any questions about that or anything else related to some of the challenges created by the rains we've been seeing over the last week.
Thank you. A question I have, and I don't intend to apply pressure here, but getting a lot of comments and would love to know just how to have people have the right expectations as to when their roads can look the way that we're accustomed to after all this rain.
The crews are working on opening culverts and getting the drainage flow lines back to an operational level. So we have done some touch-up work on the roads in the Floyd Hill area. We're going into the second week already because that storm was Wednesday night 2 weeks ago that did most of the damage, and then we had some follow-ups there at all, but we've hardly put a dent in it at this point. The Guanella Pass wall is something we're going to have analyzed. The slope itself, I believe, is stable, but the facade, the boulder wall that's in front of the soil nail and shotcrete wall is definitely compromised. So we need to see if that needs to be dismantled or can be rebuilt in the state that it's in right now. That's going to be a ways out as well. But the crew that we do have right now is focusing on the Floyd Hill area. That's where most of our damage was. And then we will get back to the secondary roads as we can. We've got one up on Stevens Gulch today in response to the Forest Service work that needs to be done up there. And we've got one up in the Little Bear Creek area and Blue Valley. And we will be continuing to focus our work on Floyd Hill here over the next several weeks, but likely this entire month of August, depending on what the weather brings us. But it'll probably take most of the month of August, George, to get the roads back in the shape they were in before that storm or group of storms.
And that's, I assume, presuming that we don't get more. Thank you.
Once we get a handle on the culverts open and whatnot, the damage should subside. I mean, what we got the first series of storms over the last 2 weekends has just moved an incredible amount of sediment and material around and compromised some of the drainage points up there. And we will be on site. I know Stoy's got a couple of site visits today at some of the problem areas that I believe coincide with the message that you got as well, George, and have passed to us through the system. So we're following up with everybody that we got calls from through that series of events. Stoy, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'd really just like to note, that, typical driveway culverts are required to be constructed and designed for a 10-year event. Most of our road culverts, cross culverts within the county right of way there are typically designed for a minimum of a 25-year event. And they become, and that's in a ideal condition when everything is flowing, clean. The culverts are all cleaned out. We don't have any blockages or sediment blocking the drainage paths. And we, in not all cases, on the county maintained roads, we try our best to keep all those passages cleaned and the culverts cleaned out. But a lot of the problems that we see that have happened this year are really largely historic problems that only tend to crop up during these larger events. And so it's things that reoccur. A lot of the challenges and issues that people have seen, especially around the Beaver Brook or the Floyd Hill area, have been there in their existing condition for a long time, and we only see problems arise from when we have these bigger events. And there's doing our best, as Carl said, just to go back and clear those paths and do some just typical maintenance work on that we'll typically do every year. This year it's just a lot more because it continues to reoccur. So see a lot of those culverts become reclogged after they've been cleaned earlier in the year. So nothing big there. Fortunately for this year's events, we haven't seen a lot of the big floodplains filled. The events that we've seen this year primarily have been more localized and shorter duration events, and we've seen a lot of localized problems out of them, but fortunately haven't seen a lot of the bigger floodways and floodplains be filled to capacity or over capacity on those. And then as far as Quinella Pass Road, as Carl said, we're taking a look at that. Had a pretty large failure there where a lot of that rock facade came down into the roadway and was partially blocking the road there. The Road and Bridge Department did a great job of getting out there and getting that cleaned out and getting everything cleared out of the road. That particular retaining wall was designed and constructed as really the slope above it is stabilized through a soil nail wall that's got a shotcrete face on it that's actually stabilizing the slope there. And the boulders that you see in the pictures, or if you've been to the site there, are from anywhere from 2 to 3 feet up to 6 or 7 feet. It's the larger diameter boulders near the base of the wall there. And although they're very large objects there, it really is more of an aesthetic facade on that. There's a lot of danger if those boulders were to continue to fall down from the existing portions of the wall that are there. But the overall slope, fortunately, is stable and to all appearances, the actual soil nail wall has held up just fine. And it's really that boulder wall face that's failed. And so the good news is that we're not real concerned at this point about a larger failure of the slope and road above or anything like that. And at this point, we're just trying to analyze and determine the best way to address the remaining boulders that are there and help ensure that they won't continue to slide down into the road there. So that's our first priority, is stabilize those and then determine a plan to move forward, whether that wall is reconstructed as it was or if it needs to be dismantled, if there's some flaw in that design or in the drainage around it. So we just want to do that analysis before we get into actually doing any significant work there other than hazard mitigation.
Any other questions for these guys?
Yeah, this is Sean. I tried a new internet connection. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. And Beth, you could probably unrestrict me from my video too, but I'm curious. So I think I understand the soil nails. How did what was the mechanism that allowed the wall to fail? Do you guys have any idea, or what typically causes it?
Yeah, most typical retaining wall failures are due to excessive loading beyond their design capacity. Most often what we see is the drainage path. Most retaining walls have a free draining, especially these boulder type retaining walls have a free draining soil or gravel behind them that leads to a drain tile or a drain pipe that allows the water to behind the wall to be discharged at the base of the wall, so that that water doesn't build up behind the wall. Either in this case, just due to the excessive rains that we received over the course of the weekend there, mainly Friday night, it appears that it saturated the area behind and between the soil nail wall and the boulders themselves. Got in there and saturated, whether that drain tile and drain outlet there became clogged or was just overwhelmed by the amount of water that was finding its way behind the boulders there. But it looks like the case in this, as with a lot of retaining wall failures, is that additional pressure from the water surcharge loading behind it caused the boulders to exceed their design capacity there and just were pushed out away from the shotcrete wall and started to fall down.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Anybody else? Questions?
Just gratefulness. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
A few other updates for you. Sean, you had requested last week an update on the sheriff's office assessment. I did communicate with KRW Associates, and that's the firm that's conducting the work. I spoke with them the end of last week, and they did indicate that they've completed all of their interviews and their data collection. Now, as you know, I was not part of the original scope in terms of developing this assessment, so I don't. In light of last week's fire assessment reviews, I would ask, were the three of you contacted by KRW, and should you have been, if you weren't?
They talked to me at the very beginning. I think shortly after the contract was executed, and that's probably the same with George and Randy, I would guess.
And did you feel like you were able to provide your input into the? I just want to make sure we didn't have a fire like we had last week with the fire.
Yeah.
Assessment. I want to make sure you had the opportunity to weigh in and provide some input.
One thing I said at the beginning is that I would appreciate some kind of a informal readout before the formal readout comes out, just to have an opportunity to ask some questions and possibly add some comments. So that would be great. It seems like now might be the right time to start thinking about scheduling something like that.
I can tell you what their plan is right now. Their plan right now is to develop their draft and to meet with myself and then the sheriff to share that with him before coming to the board.
That's fine.
That's the plan right now, and that would have them coming to the board sometime in September.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I didn't want to be surprised by something publicly, and I'm sure that wouldn't happen anyway. But yeah.
Yeah, well, so it needs to be a report you got in your hands and you can read the report before we get to a public meeting for sure. Yeah. Okay. We did terminate the lease of the coroner's facility in Idaho Springs last week, and the coroner has moved out. So he's into his temporary space at the Jordan House. Just kind of a heads up for you guys. We're in the process of scheduling interviews with two firms that we highlighted from a stack of submittals with respect to the remodel of Station 1, and hope that you meet with them in the next couple of weeks. So that's where we're at with the coroner. And we're holding our first in-person socially distanced meeting of the leadership team this Thursday, all morning on Thursday. And I have to admit, I'm kind of excited about that. We haven't had an in-person meeting since I've been here. Going to be doing some team building and having a discussion about high performance organizations, and hopefully that dovetails nicely with some of the organizational development work that the team has already been doing. So I'm really looking forward to Thursday. And then finally, Sarah Casano, our Human Services Director, shared some good news with me about the work of her team that I wanted to share with the board. The state sets specific targets or performance measures for our caseworkers that they're each asked to reach. They include face-to-face contact with parents, with children, timeliness of their responses within the work with these families. And the state periodically checks in and tracks how well the team is hitting their marks. And we were informed by the department this week that they reached 100% compliance with their measures over the course of April through June. In addition to that, the state's client services division informed us they've had 0 complaints about our human services work over the first 6 months of the year. And I think all of you know how hard it is to keep everyone happy, right? So that's great work by our team. Public thank you goes out to the entire human services team. Job well done by Emily Warren and the county's caseworker supervisor. That's the county's caseworker supervisor, and just public thank you to her and her team. And moving forward, I'd like to periodically use a portion of my update time just to kind of highlight this kind of quality service by our employees, you know, the heart of the organization, the work they're doing in service delivery to the communities. So we'd like to use a portion of my time every once in a while just to kind of highlight that kind of good work in the organization. So, and then I guess one final thing, I think Beth sent it out to all of you, I'm sure you saw it, but Summit County Commissioner Tamara Pogue is holding a task force listening session on the housing issue this Friday. So I think Beth sent you that email. I just wanted to highlight that for you. In the event that's something that you may attend. So I think that's it for my updates.
Thank you. I don't have any questions, and pause for a moment to see if Randy or Sean have any questions or comments.
None.
Okay, good, because we are now ready for our 9:25 health clinic update with Mr. Jim Pasula. Thank you for joining us, Jim. I know we had asked to get a readout on how the space in the building was being allocated. And I'm not sure, some of this may be more appropriate for executive session, but how we're comparing to our pro forma, how the negotiations are going with folks who are interested in using that space.
Sure. Well, good morning, everyone. I do want to just make sure everybody knows just a very brief update on the project. We completed the second punch list walkthrough yesterday. That was the exterior. The interior and exterior punch lists are expected to be completed either late this week or possibly next week. So the project is moving along very well. Alliance is saying that they're expecting the CO sometime this week. So the county and other folks can start moving in probably in the next week or so. But regarding the question of where everybody's going to be located, Beth, do you want to share the screen, or do you want me to? Beth put together a colored plan showing where people are going on the second floor.
All right, can you guys see the floor plan?
I cannot.
Oh, there it goes, hold on. Okay, now can you see the floor plan?
There we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
there it is.
So I'll call your attention quickly to the legend in the upper right-hand corner. Yellow represents clients from the DHS division. Blue is public health, and green are the spaces that we had planned to rent out to third-party groups. So you can see the lobbies on your far right, and as you either exit the elevator or come up the stairs and come through the locked doors, these first few offices are all DHS. We do have advocates in this row. Then you have public health on the north side of the building with their exam rooms. And then down on the south side of the building, closest to I-70, you have your IT storage room, which I just colored in yellow as it's another county used room. And then here are the rental spaces. JCMH did go from 4 reservations to 3. So that does leave us 3 open offices here on the southwest side of the building, or I'm sorry, southeast side of the building. So we just kind of wanted to share with you as we kind of narrow down to our target date to move in next week, who is moving where, and our expectations of who is renting and where they'll be located. So.
Yeah, I think the key is that last part. Just want to highlight that when we're talking about the pro forma and renting, what we're really talking about is the green labeled areas. Those are going to be what I'd refer to as kind of third-party leasing, and the remainder, the teal and mustard,
Yeah.
are county space. And then obviously you've got the open areas and some of the flow areas that are also going to be county. So this answers, I think, the first part of the question, but leads into the other portion about the pro forma. Any questions about the location or who's taking what spaces?
I see Randy as well.
Yeah, thank you, George. The one is the open office. Is that to be still a common space meeting room as envisioned right now? And then the staff lounge, is that staff lounge effectively, I see it's got a kitchen area there. So is that available to all of the occupants of the second floor or simply the county occupants, or is there a limitation to that? These are just curiosities. Yeah.
I think our anticipation, and Jim, jump in if I'm overstepping, but is that it is a shared space. It is a common area. So I don't know, Jim, do you have different?
Yeah, well, I think that both the open space, and I can't see, I think it's 227,
Yep.
And then staff lounge 203. I think it's really, honestly, I think it's up to the county if you want to make them shared spaces or not. I think my expectation would be that yes, let's go ahead and leave them as shared spaces, and that's how we could maybe have a better rent for those suites. And again, I was kind of using the nomenclature of suites because it's almost like an executive suite sort of arrangement where the idea is going to be somebody can rent, like JCMH will hopefully be renting 3 executive suites. It'll be done on a monthly basis, a monthly rental basis. And hopefully it'll be at least a year contract, or maybe 2 or 3 years. But they would potentially have access to both of those, the open office and the staff lounge. And the other portion, to answer we did leave that open office again, 227 as an open office. I know there's some back and forth of breaking that up, putting a wall in, maybe putting in a couple walls. But I think that when we met on site, it was the commissioner's opinion, and I think it's a wise one to leave it open for now. We can always figure out later if there's a need for breaking off, and having additional rooms. But for now, I think let's see how it gets used, and we can adjust later.
Okay, and I don't have, how does the amount of space that we're renting compare to the amount of space we were planning to rent in the pro forma? I don't have that pro forma in front of me. I've been digging through emails trying to find it.
So let's talk about that, because that's the perfect lead in or segue to the discussion of the pro forma. And after this, I can resend out to everybody what we had presented before about, there were 2 pro forma that we sent. One was the base case, and the other was a reduced square footage space pro forma. I'm happy to share my screen. I don't know if you want to go into executive session because we are going to talk about kind of specific numbers, but maybe we can start with the overview, and then if you all have, if you want to drill down into them, we can talk about it separately. But why don't I try to share my screen here?
Let me just state, if we are going to discuss issues relating to the lease of this property, my suggestion would be to have that in executive session. A proper reason for an executive session would be to discuss property interests, including that being the subject of a lease.
And my slight preference would be, if we're going to do that, that you share the information with the board ahead of time so we can look at it and have a more productive conversation. Plus, we don't have a ton of time left before 10 anyway.
I apologize about that. Next time I'll certainly try to get that out to everybody beforehand. And so I did want to potentially discuss maybe some of the leases in with some specificity. So it might be appropriate to go to executive session.
Yeah, I think based on our conversation this morning, Jim, and talking that through, I think it makes sense for it to be an executive session.
Okay.
I think
I know
later today, right? I mean, isn't it a pretty short day today?
Yeah, we've only got 23 minutes until we move into the next session. So it's not a lot of time to get into specificity about individual leases.
What we could do is I could give an overview. I mean, and go through the leases that we've got either signed or letters of intent that are signed, and we can have that discussion. And I can make sure that we get these pro formas out to everybody so they can see it. And afterward, if you've got questions, obviously I'd be happy to have another discussion or communicate by email to make the best use of everybody's time.
Is there a need for direction from the board on any negotiations this week?
No, the only direction that I think we're going to ask of you all is, so just generically, George, you asked the question about, well, how does the square footage compare to the original underwriting? Well, I think what I believe is that there's more square footage that the county should be allocated, and obviously less square footage that the third parties on the second floor are going to be allocated, which means that even if we keep the rent constant, the rent per square foot constant for the county on the second floor, it means it's going to be it's going to increase. So in other words, just talking about specific numbers, we had originally said, well, you know what, let me do this. Why don't I share my screen and kind of more at a summary level, and then we can talk about this, and you can see this, and we will we can have follow-up as needed. Can everybody see this now?
Yes.
Okay, so when we had originally presented the pro forma, we had a base case and we had a reduced square footage case. The reduced square footage case was trying to figure out or trying to come up with a model that had less of an add-on factor, especially for the first floor. As you may recall, in real estate, it's very typical that a tenant doesn't just pay for their, the space that's inside their walls and inside their doors. They also pay an allocation of the common areas, the bathrooms, the lobbies, things like that. It's just very common, and it's what you would consider BOMA rentable standards. BOMA being Building Owners and Managers Association. It's the guideline for all leases and real estate transactions. So the base case, we were saying that market rent was $22, but that the county was going to be paying $12. This was something that was requested by the county previously. Earlier today, there was a question, well, how did that come up? Where did we come up with the $12 number? It was, frankly, it was just given to me as that's what the county wanted to pay. So the base case previously, and I broke this down to show county base rent and then also third-party base rent, just so that we can see and compare the differences in these different models. So previously we were saying that the county was going to pay $48,480 in base rent. They were also going to pay their share of the operating expenses. But the third parties were going to pay $182,248 plus the operating expense recovery minus certain vacancy credit loss, which we would normally budget because we don't know who the tenancy is going to be. They would provide effective gross revenue of $309,431 less the expenses was a net operating income of $211,265. Again, we had a reduced square footage scenario. Nothing happened. There was no change to the county base rent because we were assuming that that was going to be the same square footage. It was that third party base rent that was going to be lower. And ultimately a slightly lower net operating income. So that's what we had presented going back to at least a year ago and probably 12 to 18 months ago. Any questions on those two scenarios? So now we come to the current pro forma and current projection. We're using the same square footage. We're now assuming for the second floor office suites that there's 7 of them, going back to the floor plan we just saw in George's question. Still assuming a market rate of 22, but probably need to asterisk that because we've got different terms for some of the different tenants, and that we can get into later. Still using $12 for the county rent, and assuming $450 as an average monthly rate for those second floor suites. So this is one of the biggest changes in the model, and it goes exactly to George's question. So we had been projecting about 60% of the second floor would be county space. Now we're assuming that there's only 7 suites that we can be renting to third parties. So there's about 85% of that second floor is county space. So just doing the basic math of $12 times that county space comes up with a higher base rent for the county. We're also projecting a slightly lower base rent for the third parties. That's again due to less square footage being allocated to third parties. And we have a potential where one of the tenants on the first floor is going to be paying under this amount. I did adjust the vacancy credit loss because now we're looking at less income that is lower credit, so to speak. Second floor is going to be mostly county.
Right.
First floor is going to be mostly Centura, so the allowance is a little bit lower. And obviously that's a big change. So that's a big positive change that we're showing. That ultimately comes down to a number of a net operating income of $214,554, which is obviously higher than the original two pro forma models, but is really based upon a bit in a very large part to the county paying more, being allocated more square footage. So this is where, and you all need to digest this. We'll need to get you copies of this. There's probably gonna be follow-up, but the question is gonna come down to the county base rent. Number one, already paying $12 versus the market, and then being allocated more square footage. What is the right amount for the county to be paying on that second floor space? Brian and Beth and others before have said, well, what does that even matter if because it's in one, out of one pocket and in the other one. But that's certainly not my call. That's something that wanted to present today so that there would be discussion on this.
Is that net operating income number, is that assuming all of the space is leased, or is that the sum of our current leases?
It is assuming all the spaces are leased with a certain allowance for vacancy credit loss. Now, I mean, that's, again, it's not a big allowance, so we might want to relook at it, increasing that, you know, but it is assuming that the first floor space of just under 1,300 square feet gets leased, and then that these 7 units are leased as well.
So what I see is at the end of the day, even if we were to increase our vacancy, our anticipated vacancy rate and loss, we are reasonably close to our original base case pro forma, not the reduced amount. Is that correct?
Yes, I'd say that that's a fair summary of it.
I have to admit, it seems counterintuitive that the county paying a lower rate, getting more space would end up with more net revenue.
So, well, they're still paying the same rate that they were paying before, but instead of being allocated for roughly 4,000 square feet, they're being allocated just under 6,000 square feet. That's why it's increasing there.
Well, my point is, if those 2,000 square feet that used to be rented to third parties are now being rented internally, I guess my assumption was, had they been rented to a third party, it would be more a market rate, resulting in higher revenue. So it's confusing to me that making that change from a higher square footage to a lower square footage would result in a better pro forma. I mean, I'm happy, it's great, it looks awesome, but I just don't quite understand it. Or is the case that we're charging JCNH the same reduced rate that we're charging ourselves, the same sub-market rate, and at the other private renters on the second floor?
No, we're charging them.
Not sure that's a question we want to get into right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
Sorry,
table
Brenda.
that last. I'll table that last part. But Sean, one of the things I'll do is I can give a more detailed pro forma to show just the math on that. Why? I mean, because every square foot that gets allocated to the county on the second floor, so it's at $12 versus the 22, but we've now gone from being roughly 80-20 on the second floor. Sorry, I mean, we've allocated so much extra space to the county that that's how we're getting over the or that's how we're getting an increase in the overall rent. But let me go through and show it to you.
Yeah, that's good. I
how
mean,
that's working.
I appreciate your expertise in this area. It's something that I'm not familiar with. It just didn't seem intuitive to me, and we can just take it offline and find with George's suggestion.
Sure.
I was just really just trying to prevent disclosure of any lease rates. So, I mean, what it seems like to me is the fluctuation is on that vacancy credit loss projection, and as it stands right now, our vacancy loss would be 16,000 based on 4 office suites not being rented. So is that where we're getting at? I mean, I see how because we can count on stability from those offices that have been allocated to the county, that vacancy number would shrink, but it looks to me like maybe it shrank too much.
When I was looking at that, changing that vacancy credit loss, I was mainly looking to the first floor, but I absolutely see your point that we may need to relook at that, given that those exec suites on the the office suites on the second floor. So I I think I agree with you that we probably need to increase the vacancy credit loss a bit to factor in those second floor suites.
Right. We don't have projected occupants at this time, correct?
And Beth can speak to this. We have 6 of the 7 suites penciled in, if you will, but we don't have signed leases yet.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, that kind of changes.
That helps.
Well, but to your point, George, it's basically only 4 months of downtime just for those. I think we need to. Let me relook at the second floor and come up with something reasonable. It's not going to be 16,000. I don't think that we need to be budgeting. It's probably not going to be 17.5. Maybe something in the 3,500 to 4,500 range is going to be more realistic. It is going to bring us back to more the original base case.
Yeah,
but
that's what I was seeing. If you tripled the loss, we'd be right about where we started on the base case. So that's not bad news.
Yeah.
We're going to talk at all about the non-Centura space on the first floor.
Sure. So as of right now, we've had a number of leads for the space. We've gone back and forth, or we've sent out 2 letters of intent for that space. We are currently working with a signed letter of intent for a physical therapy group. One of the other groups that we sent an LOI for and was also a PT group. Where we are with that right now is that they are working on a space plan, and they want to figure out what it's going to cost to build out their suite before we finalize the deal. So in other words, they did sign a letter of intent, but they wanted to reconfirm what they're going to need in terms of an improvement allowance, especially given today's world, the pricing that they're seeing. So we're in the process. I think that I know I saw some emails about the initial draft space plan. So hopefully we'll have finished this week or early next week, and then can send it out to contractors for preliminary pricing. And assuming it comes back reasonable, then I think we can move to lease. But I think every tenant today is very concerned about the cost of the build out of the space, and it's making it difficult to get deals done. I'll say that.
Is there any projection for when they would open their doors? Any sort of a range of times? I mean, I think the whole community will be looking forward to having that available to us.
I would say just off the cuff, probably an opening would be say 6 to 7 months out. Kind of working through the timeline. It would be maybe like 2 to 4 weeks to get pricing on their plan, and let's say it takes about 30 days to finalize a lease. And meanwhile, they'd be working on their design, and it would probably take 3 to 4 months to complete their work. So best case would be sometime late December or January, but more realistic January, February, maybe even March.
Okay, thanks.
My pleasure. So any other questions on the pro forma or the project? So I think as my takeaways, I'll make sure to get out to everybody the original report that we had put together. So everybody got that background. I will get everybody these pro formas, and then potentially more detail for everybody to review.
Thank you. Maybe the only other thing on my mind, and I realize we don't have much time left, but are there any comments from staff about whether our internal needs are being met by this facility?
Point. Are we getting everyone there that we need to, or housing anyone that can, and I don't think that we are, whose service is not directly related to healthcare?
I can share that the staff was really pleased to retain the community meeting room in the center for classes, for employee gatherings, trainings, things like that. They were really pleased to retain that. We are going to obtain some tables and chairs to set up in there for board meetings and, you know, what other kind of trainings they may have.
And has the conversation advanced around trying to build in some like flex working space for people to?
There, you know what? I'll share my screen again because I want to show you. Let's see if I can get that document back. On the screen here, can you see my cursor moving around? So in this corner right here, it's kind of, this is actually where the roof access is. So it's kind of a dead space. We were going to set up kind of a desk area here for remote work and probably, well, obviously this room will be set up for audio visual to do meetings and broadcasts and Zoom meetings, similar to what we're going to do in the BOCC room here at the courthouse. So we are going to set some desk space in here for people to do kind of a shared workspace. And then we do, you know, have the 3 rentals that are not used right now. You know, if people wanted to, you know, be down there for the day working. And then again, in the big room, we'll have large meeting tables. If people want to spread out in there, they can do that too. That answer your question, or were you looking for something more formalized?
No, that's great. I realize it's a curveball question with 3 minutes left, so I'm not expecting a presentation. I appreciate what you have. Anything else on this?
I think not.
Well, I'm sorry, I do want to say one thing based upon, I thought that 6 of the 7 were penciled for the second floor. I think there are discussions with a few others, but based on Beth's plan there, we're seeing, I saw 4 of the 7 are identified. Well,
I think we
still
were
not
looking at, are we looking at JCMH, then the 3 marked rental, and then also the advocates as being outside agencies? So those are the 7. Is that correct, Beth?
Yes.
Okay. Because the advocates come out of, I think, judicial, which is not county government. So.
Okay. Then I think we're in good shape. Thank you, Mr. Pasula, for coming and providing this. Looks like we'll dig into this a little further maybe next week.
my pleasure. Thank you.
So we're not going to plan an executive session on this subject today. Is that correct? At end of day thing?
You know, that was an option, and I had forgotten. I mean, I'm open to that. I don't know if
Is Jim open to that? Does he have time? That's the question.
What time would that be?
Probably around noonish, I'm guessing.
maybe even 11:30. Those COVID updates tend to take 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm open between 11 and 1.
Okay.
Any objections to us scheduling that?
Nope.
Okay, so then what we're going to do is is the word continue. We're going to continue the health clinic update to sometime between 11:30 and noon. And So thank you again, Peter. You're good with that? Okay. So it is 10 o'clock. Next thing on the agenda is consideration of approval of special event liquor permit for the St. Mary's Property Owners Association. I do think we need to do a formal hearing on this. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we are sitting as the local liquor licensing authority. Annette, do you have any information for the public before we ask for public comment?
If we could cross over Alicia Myers, she's here to represent the applicant. If the board has any questions for her during the hearing. Generally, it's a regular application. The applicant applied. We're doing a hearing this year because they did not hold their event last year due to COVID. So we just wanted to touch base with the board, make sure everything was still okay. All the events that they have held previously have been run just fine. Everybody has signed off on the application. We posted the property and there's been no opposition that we're aware of.
Okay, thank you. And then before we go to public comment, anything that the applicant would like to add?
No, if you need anything from us, we'll pitch in, but otherwise we're okay.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and open up public comment then. If you are here and would like to speak to this application, please click participants, click raise hand. And we'd love to hear what's on your mind. Just leave it open for about 30 seconds while people find their buttons. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. So at this point, I think we're doing board deliberation. Any comments or questions on this application?
I always ask this, confirming Annette, it's staff's recommendation that we approve this.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
That was my only question as well.
Same.
Okay, in that case, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I move that we approve the special event liquor permit for St. Mary's Property Owners Association.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm aware that you're all volunteers up there bringing this event to our community, and thank you.
Thank you.
Next thing on the agenda is our Board of County Commissioners consent agenda. Do we have any call to remove anything from the consent agenda?
Nope.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read it now. Item number 1, consideration of approval of the warrant register. Item number 2, consideration of approval of resolution number 21-59. Amending resolution number 13-95, authorizing the Clear Creek County Tourism Bureau to erect and maintain an official advertising device.
Yeah, I guess have a really quick question, probably for Peter. It seems like this is a pretty, erecting the sign seems like this is a pretty tactical manner to create a resolution around. What's the background around that?
So there's a statutory reason that we actually have to approve signage by resolution. It's listed in the resolution itself today. This particular sign is not in the same location as the sign that either fell down or was damaged. It's a new sign. So that's why we basically reiterated the old resolution that allowed for signs, and then this specified the exact location of the new sign. We had discussed maybe doing a generalized resolution for any time the board wanted to erect a sign, but because the statute requires certain criteria, that's why we have the resolution before you. Hopefully we don't have to do that often.
Okay, I was just curious. Thanks for that clarification. I don't have any other questions.
With no other comment, I would move that we approve the consent agenda as, or have you presented? Have you listed?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So can we get a 2-minute and 30-second break, which is 15 seconds to walk up the stairs, 2 minutes to heat my coffee that I forgot and left in the microwave, and 15 seconds back down.
Certainly. So the next thing on the agenda is a work session to discuss the Saxon Mountain Road status. Peter Lickner is going to be presenting on that. We're going to go on break for just a couple moments. How you doing, James?
Good.
Been a rainy year out there, huh?
Yes, it has. It's done quite a number on the trails as well as the roads.
I guess we'll have to add waiters to your supply list.
It's getting close. The crew's all issued with frog togs in the meantime that we wear almost every day.
Sorry, boiled the coffee over. Lost time.
Okay, looks like we're all here. So this is our work session to discuss the status of Saxon Mountain Road. Peter, I'm going to hand the floor to you.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. As you know, we met about 2 weeks ago originally to discuss Saxon Mountain Road. The sheriff had indicated he had concerns about the safety of the road. So the board decided to temporarily close that road while it could be assessed and while any obstacles or dangerous conditions could be reviewed and possibly removed. In that time, a week ago, we updated the board very briefly that we were getting an assessment done, that we had actually had a meeting with several stakeholders relating to Saxon Mountain Road, including Historic Georgetown Incorporated. We had some members of the HDPLC on that call, as well as members of the Mile High Jeep Club and numerous other organizations. Over the weekend, I'm not sure if it was last weekend, that James went up with James, who's our trail manager, of course, on this call, had gone up with a member from the Mile High Jeep Club, Mark Woodworth, I believe, and actually removed 2 boulders that were of concern to the sheriff, and then a 3rd boulder that hadn't been mentioned by the sheriff initially. James has a presentation. He may even have some pictures that he can go through on this, but to give you the spoiler alert on this, essentially the road is in much better condition in the assessment of staff than it had been. Sheriff Elder does not have any concerns with the road being reopened. You'll probably hear from Carl as well as James that they also recommend that the road be reopened. Carl is working with me on signage. I just this morning had given him some language, so he'll be getting the stronger signs drawn up that will hopefully discourage people from using the road who don't have the technical skills to do that. Additionally, another organization, staythetrails.org, is working on signage that addresses more of the technical concerns that's independent of us. But will allow them to post that signage, as it will deter people who are not able to drive that type of road. So I think I'd like to next turn it over to James, if you're ready, and then I suppose we could go to Carl as well.
All right, thank you, Peter. And I've got this presentation that hopefully everyone can see. Can you see that, Peter?
Yes.
Okay. So I just have a few slides here with some pictures and some high-level bullet points, but Mark Woodruff from Mile High Jeep Club, myself, along with some of my trail crew, did go up on Saxon Mountain last week and did some work on the road to address the concerns the sheriff had. There was 2 major problem areas that were causing the most safety concerns, where there was 2 large boulders that were blocking part of the road and causing people to either go over them in an unsafe manner or squeeze between them and the cliff side of the lower side of the Jeep road. And we did address those areas, as I'll show here in the next couple of slides. There was also some areas that had minor issues that are slated for maintenance. And we're working with Mile High Jeep Club on that. And then we also discussed a plan for ongoing maintenance and repairs And I think as I've indicated on a previous call, the trails crew does do maintenance on this road every year, what I would call light maintenance, just moving small boulders from the middle of the road and also removing any trees or limbs that have fallen into the road. So this is the current signage at the bottom of the road. The first one, I don't know if you can read that, but it says primitive road, 4x4 high clearance vehicles only. Recovery is difficult and expensive. And then you can see the sign below that, and that's my sign that I placed. And I believe Carl placed the sign below that, no road maintenance, proceed at your own risk. So this is at the very bottom of the road. When you come across around the first switchback, both of these signs are staring you right in the face. So that's what's there right now. We can put stronger signage there, hopefully address it even more. But you know, if I was this, clearly this is a road not for Subarus and other vehicles, just for high clearance modified Jeeps and so forth. In addition to this, there's social media sites. There's quite a few off-road sites that have this road listed at various difficulty levels. A couple of those did not have this at appropriate difficulty level, and Mark did contact them, and they've since changed that to make this indicate this is a more difficult road. So hopefully that will help in our endeavor to keep those without the proper equipment or the proper skills off the road.
James, can you blow that up a little bit?
Yeah, let's see.
Just because I can't read the brown sign on top. If you
And I
can't,
can also add that particular sign, the one that says primitive road. I know it's hard to see. It says primitive road 4x4 high clearance vehicles only. And then now I can't see what it said, but recovery is difficult and expensive. So that was originally a sign that was reviewed and proposed by the trails crew. And I know Bob Leffler had reviewed it and approved it. The no road maintenance, proceed at your own risk is, I believe, James, is that the newer sign?
No, that sign was already there that I
Okay.
believe Road and Bridge placed.
So, and that sign, the one in yellow is actually more consistent with the new signage that will also go up. Even though James had said that they softly maintain that road, it is not considered a maintained county road.
Correct.
It is very definitively defined as a secondary non-maintained road, but the trails crew does go up there and make sure that things are, you know, fairly passable. The signs that will go up will be a little stronger, explaining people that there's the switchbacks are difficult, that there will be areas they cannot turn around, that rescue would be very slow, things like that. Things to discourage the group from doing it. I do want to, even though James is in the middle of his presentation, I do want to commend James and the trails crew for the way that they helped manage and coordinate the clearing of the boulders. I also think it's really important to note that Carl's crew, his road and bridge team, have been on top of this like from the beginning. And so I just think it's important to note that staff has done an amazing job to actually get this road reopened and has worked very well. James in particular got waivers signed by the necessary people when they went up there, which was also something that was necessary. So they took the initiative, and I just think it's important to mention that.
well, as long as I don't want to break into James' presentation, so I was writing down questions, but I think to mention at the end, but as long as we're looking at these signs, if there is an implication in the signs, and I think you allude to that a little bit when you say that there may be stronger signage yet to go on here that's not there yet, but that the skill level is, that the exposure is significant and the consequences. I mean, rescue is one thing. You know, it could be that the person driving the vehicle, rescue will become irrelevant to them. Can be the consequences of their actions if they go down there without adequate skills. And so some way to convey that. And I realize that there are legalities involved there too, because Peter could probably speak to the fact that when you say, if you go down here, it can be dangerous if you make a mistake and you can die, then you begin to open up other legal doors that you knew something and didn't find a different way to deal with it. So I don't know what the answer is, but some way that indicates that it's not just if you got it, because a lot of people feel that once they bought a tall enough vehicle, that implies that their skill levels are high enough.
So the language that Carl will be putting up goes to essentially says things such as Saxon Mountain Road is an unmaintained narrow shelf road with 700 foot plus drop offs. I'm not sure about that number.
Okay.
I believe
Okay.
it's up to 700.
That's the kind of stuff I was talking about, to let them
Yeah,
understand.
and then it
the
goes
level
on.
of
We have
exposure.
other things to talk about, tight turns. We have other things to talk about, travel at your own risk. Lots of descriptive language that should discourage people.
I'm gonna, hopefully you saw, I zoomed in on that sign, Randy, so I'm gonna continue now. So I've identified these locations as boulder number 1 and boulder number 2. Boulder number 1 is lower down, so it was the first one we encountered on the way up. So this is boulder number 1, and this is the one that actually caused John to roll his Jeep as he was coming down the road. And this is the before picture. So you can see that the boulder is kind of on the high side of the road. There's actually not quite enough room to squeeze through it on the lower side, so you're forced to go over it. So that's the before picture. This is the after picture. So the boulder is here on the right side. You can see we've split it in half with wedges and we've dragged it over to the side. And now the road is wide open here. There's another boulder above it, but it's low into the ground, so you can drive over it. And what was happening was, as people drove over it, they were forced to go over it at unusual angles to try to get around this second boulder, which is now completely moved out of the way. We did move it to the lower side so people can go on the safer upper side of the road and not worry about falling off the edge. Is there any question on this one? All right, this is boulder number 2, much higher up. This is about 3/4 the way up. So it's a very large boulder that rolled down the hill, and it's been there since 2017 when I started. And as you can see, it forces you to go way over to the low side of the road where it was somewhat unsafe. So this is kind of the work in progress. So this picture was taken from the lower side facing upwards. That's when the top left pictures when we first started drilling holes for the splitting wedges. This is where we've broken the first piece off the rock as we're working on it, and then we actually you can see the width of that rock. It's almost 2 feet, and then we actually split another 1 foot section off. So this is the after picture. So you can see on the right side, the large boulder has been cut all the way to the edge of the road. Part of that was moved down to the lower edge of the road to prevent people from being tempted to go too close to the edge. I did measure the width from that boulder to the edge of the road, which is now 9 feet. So that should be plenty of room even for the widest Jeep to get through. So at this point, the recommendations both for myself and for Mark Woodruff with the Mile High Jeep Club, that we've eliminated the problem, as you saw, with the boulder, the first boulder. We've moved it from the center road to the downhill side. As I mentioned, on the second boulder, 2 to 3 feet of rock were removed, creating a 9-foot passage. There was another smaller boulder, and I say smaller, it's probably 600 or 700 pounds, that was above the area where the first rock was. And we dragged that out of the way as well, because that forced you to make a kind of an unusual turn. So I don't have a picture of that one, but we did move that third boulder. And then I've got a couple of bullets here that Mark helped out with. And this is one of the statements that Sheriff Albers made. We believe we've addressed that. And then both of us concurred that the work performed reduced the risk and the road should be reopened. That's our opinion. It's up to Carl. And then as far as next steps, we've had some ongoing discussions with Mile High Jeep Club to address the for ongoing maintenance, the agreement to do that, where we can do some of the light maintenance, and then Mile High Jeep Club can go up with volunteers and do some of the more involved work, as far as moving some additional dirt out of the way and some more time consuming items. After the road is reopened, there's a few smaller boulders and some contouring and parts where the earth needs to be shaved down maybe 6 or 8 inches. What I would call, some minor maintenance that Mark's agreed to work on with the Mile High Jeep Club. And as I mentioned, looking forward to some ongoing cooperation. So that's all I have, Peter.
Okay, so with that in mind, I think, Carl, I don't know if you have anything additional that you want to talk about. Just so you know, at this point, we are not entering into any formal agreements with any of these groups that have been assisting us. James is working more informally with them. I believe that, and Mark, I apologize because I believe I said your last name incorrectly. But Mile High Jeep Club, as well as some of there's CORE, which is another group, I think have developed quite a good working relationship with James and will continue to work with him in the future. But we're not entering into any formal maintenance type of agreements, sort of an adopt the road type of situation with these groups. I think what we need to do is rely on James and his crew, because they do go out there to these various roads probably at least 2 or 3 times a year. And when they have input or want to offer things, I think we'll go with that and then reach out to these groups in an informal basis. We'll get the waivers and we'll coordinate with Carl. So Carl, I wanted to turn it over to you now.
Yeah, and just real quick, Peter, that's exactly right. I mean, they would be working with us on as a volunteer group basis, very similar to what we do on the trails with Colorado Mountain Bike Association and other volunteer groups.
Great.
All right. I would also like to express just gratitude or thanks to James and his crew and the volunteer group with Mile High Jeep Club, just for the collaboration and being able to move fairly quickly on the assessment of the roadway. And I think that's something we'll continue to do, mainly with James's trails crew, periodically, as things change or other rocks enter that roadway, that we can address that kind of stuff moving forward. But I do believe that the work that they performed last week should satisfy the sheriff's concerns with those couple places that were in question. And then James, maybe you can answer this, but when we started the process with the Mile High Jeep Club, they had talked about doing volunteer work the weekend of the 7th and 8th, which is coming up. Are they still planning on doing some of that follow-up work this coming weekend, or do you know that?
I am not sure. Mark, do you know?
And I can reach out to him outside the meeting if need be.
Okay. And I've got him on a chat window here, Mark, if you want to respond to that. I'm not certain if he's going to proceed with that or not, Carl.
Okay. And at the time, just so the board knows, I mean, we still have the temporary type 3 road closures, both at the top and the bottom, to keep people off that roadway right now. You know, once we come to a decision today to see where you want to go with that, we can have those moved aside and then picked up here, likely by the end of the week. And then I will work with Peter. Some of the signage that we've looked at is comparative language to the Black Bear Pass area down by Durango, and it's, you know, explains what a shelf road truly is with the exposure, and just indicates the extreme dangers that the potential of extreme danger. Let's put it that way. Just to going off the roadway.
Mhm.
So I think we can get those in place here fairly quickly as well. There's Mark.
Yeah, so my teams are looking forward to possibly getting onto that trail as soon as the trail is reopened, to roll some boulders out of the way, more or less just do a little bit of high side lowering. There's one spot that is a little tippy towards the downhill side, and we can level that out, make people more comfortable making it down that trail. But the things that we identified were some larger boulders that are on the uphill side that are probably going to need to be broken away. And some of the other boulders that are in the middle of the road that cause you to choose, you know, do you go to the high side? Do you go to the low side? That we can easily hook a winch to and get over to the low side and set them on the side of the road. That kind of discourages the shelf type driving and the ooh, I want to look over the edge while you're, you know, sitting behind the seat.
So it sounds like that you're looking at some boulders and then a little bit of the slough work along the uphill edge.
Exactly.
Where you get erosion coming down, so that if you can scoop some of that out of the way, you leave a little more
Yeah,
space.
we move the high side down to the low side and try to make things a little more level. It just makes people feel a little more comfortable, especially when you're driving and you start to tip towards the downhill side. People get uncomfortable. They don't mind tipping towards the mountain.
Mark, I may have misunderstood you. You said you were going to roll some boulders out of the way. And I think I remember in this conversation, one of the concerns being exactly that, with that 700-foot drop. Were you referring to something other than rolling them down the hill?
No, we're looking at smaller boulders, probably 2 foot, 3 foot in diameter, that we can easily move with a winch or some you know, steel poles that we use. The idea being just to move them onto the downhill side to discourage people from getting a tire over that way.
So they become kind of like a curb on the downhill side. On the
Yeah,
shelf.
think of it that way. Yeah. So we were looking at this weekend or possibly next weekend of putting a team together. I've got people that are available as early as this week. Other people take a little more time to coordinate with, especially if we're going to break some of the boulders. There's a couple boulders that are further downhill from the original spot that we started working at with James that give you a decision whether or not you go between the boulders or you go on the downhill side, and maybe adding a little more room to go between it and make people a little more comfortable with their decision. You know, people don't like breaking off mirrors and scuffing the paint off their cars.
Well,
And oh, I'm sorry. Just so the board understands, what we're suggesting here is just not to extend the temporary closure. The closure will lapse, so you don't need to take any formal action to undo that. So that's really the question before the board, whether it does want to do that or whether it feels the need to extend it, but I'm suspecting it does not based on staff's recommendations.
okay. I think my thoughts on it, I don't mind weighing in at all, are that it appears that from my recollection of the previous conversation with the sheriff and some offline conversations with him, that the, and looking at the pictures here, it appears, without the sheriff being in the room, to comment about our recollection, our characterization of his statements, it appears that we've reasonably mitigated the things that were his greatest concerns. And so I'll say that generally I'm okay with letting this lapse, with the understanding that he's on vacation and there have been 3 or 4 things come up in the last week that I have judiciously stayed off his cell phone on, because I know he gets a lot of stuff on his cell phone, and left him alone. So we presume that he'll be able to come back and see all of this and understand, and we might revisit the discussion down the road based on any input he would have to us. But personally, I feel comfortable with not extending this temporary closure at this time, based on what's presented here, and especially with the understanding, as Mark said, that they're going to be going up and doing a little more work on that road. And then the final thing is that, from a county standpoint, from my standpoint, I want to be clear that I'm not perceiving this to be Road and Bridge taking on the responsibility of maintaining this particular road or other recreational roads in general, when obviously we just had a discussion a little bit ago about how long it's going to take to get the roads in front of the houses fixed around the county. We've got enough to do that we're millions of dollars behind on without taking on that responsibility for Road and Bridge. So I just wanted that on the record from my perspective. So.
Yeah, and I would say, Randy, that any roads like this that we consider non-maintained secondary, or I'd like to call them primitive roads, that I don't think Carl is maintaining, that, we'll go up and do the same thing, the light maintenance as far as clearing some fallen trees or rocks off of.
Yeah, if Carl's got a machine that can do something that nobody else has anything can do, and he's got the minute and he wants to do it, that's his business. But
Yep.
Certainly there's not a requirement for him to maintain these roads. So.
Right.
I might, in general terms, Randy, I agree with you. Based on these reports, it sounds like we can let this thing lapse, this closure lapse. A little timing concern I have is that the closure would end, I think, effective sometime today or midnight, depending on how you count, 16 days. And then I heard Carl say that he wasn't going to be able to remove the barriers until sometime later this week. And so I'm just wondering if that changes the way we think about whether the closure needs to last while the road is physically closed.
Maybe we could make a motion to extend it until such time as Carl is able to remove the barriers. And what that does is it removes the incentive or the belief that other people have the ability to go up and start removing those barriers on their own. And I'm okay with that too. Not meaning that we're intending to extend the road closure, but that we don't want people to think they have the authority to start picking up county barricades and removing them as a precedent, if anything else.
What are the nature of the barricades? I remember it was mentioned last week, but I don't remember.
So Carl, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, originally we talked about putting in some type of, when the conversation started, we talked about some type of permanent gate or closure, top and bottom. We changed course just with the conversation and only being a 2-week period, that we put type 3 barricades in the roadway, but they are chained in place. So the bottom location is easily accessible. It's the one at the top. And I may have to talk with James. I just don't have staff with the work we have right now to drop everything and go up and do that, as far as a priority goes, unless the board directs me to do so. If not, I can talk with James and we can probably get to that top gate in the next several days.
And I would be the last person, Carl, to tell you how you should do your job. The only question I'm wondering is if James's team or someone else could do it just so that we could simplify this whole conversation and wrap this up.
Yeah, because I mean, in the meantime, my thoughts there, James, they're set up where they can be moved to the side of the roadway and
Right.
then picked up with a flatbed or a vehicle that can carry those, because you cannot carry those with an ATV or a UTV. They need to be picked up with a vehicle just because of their size. And
Yeah,
we can get to the locations. It's a half-day venture in a work truck to get to and from there. So if I can incorporate with you to get them moved to the side where we can open the roadway safely, we can pick them up then in a.
All right, Carl, can those be moved with like a regular pickup truck with F-250?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so yeah, we can pick up the one at the bottom, and then I can go up in the Jeep and move the one at the top aside. I don't know if I don't think I can get my F-250 up the road to the top. I don't know how you guys place that one.
Yeah, we come in from the backside off of Lamartine.
Okay.
We'll do the same. But if you, and you'll probably need one person with you, if you guys can move that upper one out to that overlook area,
okay,
then we can get to that by the end of the week. But we should be able to get those. Just getting to those two locations, if you have time, we can do that fairly quickly.
Yeah, we can actually do that tomorrow. I can carve out some time to move those tomorrow.
That sounds great to me, as long as it's county staff. And I've seen 3 or 4 things in the last 2 or 3 weeks that are the only thing that led me to say this. And one was, I'll just briefly outline them. One was about 6 or 8 red cones and a giant sawhorse that said road closed at exit 240. And I watched tourists move the cones out of the way and drive down the ramp. And I was like kind of shocked to see that happen, that they would just, open the road back up on their own. And then we've had people running over some of our barricades and calming devices and knocking them down and stuff. And we know that that's nothing like what we're talking about here, but it just seems like the precedent of having the public pick up our publicly placed barricades and remove them on their own is a bad precedent to approve. That's the only reason I said it. But if James can get up there and make this work, and Carl can pick this stuff up later or anything like that, it's all good, as long as we're doing it with county instruction and county staff.
Mm-hmm.
So George, just so we're clear, since you'd raised the issue, I don't think a motion or any new resolution to extend is necessary. The closure has expired, so now it's just up to us practically putting it into effect by removing the barriers. It's reasonable that we would take a few days in order to effect that.
Okay. The only other comment, I realize we're really low on time here. So let's put this as something for a future discussion. My understanding of the scope of work of the trails crew was that they were focusing on like single track backcountry trails and not focusing on roads. And so I'm a little worried about scope creep and would like to be involved in any conversations expanding the scope of the work of the trails crew.
100% agreed with that request for discussion.
I have one 60-second comment, and it's a huge thanks to the 4-wheel drive community, and also appreciation for your patience. I think in hindsight, we kind of did this one the hard way. And now that we have these relationships in place, I would think that future events probably wouldn't result in a road closure request coming to the Board of County Commissioners. But I think with all that said, everybody close ranks and work together. And I'm really proud of the fact that this only affected the road for 2 weeks. So thanks.
Yeah, and I generally agree with that. I think had those boulders already been moved, then the sheriff wouldn't have made the request, which I do not consider a knee-jerk reaction at all. And I think he made the right request because the boulders hadn't been removed. So at least it's on everybody's radar. And I really appreciate Mile High Jeep Club's been a great partner all along and for years. And among some of the best actors in the field that we have out here engaging in this activity. And so the help they gave us this weekend has been, or this last week has been invaluable in solving this problem. And keeping an eye on it will help out. It'll avoid this having to happen in the future.
I agree with both of what you said and want to add to that gratefulness towards our staff for scrambling and figuring this out, and James for just getting up there and getting it done, and
Yep.
Carl and Stoy for figuring out in the middle of a pretty rough season already how to find time for this.
And
Yeah,
honestly,
thanks, guys.
making it happen.
There's always a fine line between a safety concern and a trail feature. Because it could go either way.
Beth, I see you have something to say.
Yeah, commissioners, before we break on the discussion, I just crossed over Nancy Hale from HGI. I think she might have a comment.
Thanks.
Okay, and Nancy, let's be brief because we do have a Board of Equalization hearing starting right now.
Exactly. Thank you guys for everything. I mean, this has been a big deal for HGI. And also I wanted to say to Mark Woodworth or James Cavalli, when you're going up, I will give you my phone number. I would like to go up with somebody so I can take some pictures for the board up there. So thanks again. This has been really excellent.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to try to keep us on time here because you've got an equalization action item and then our COVID update. So we're now sitting as the Board of Equalization. We have one hearing. We have Carolyn Hone here. We have Diane Settle here. Miss Settle, can you describe this case for us?
Yes, this is a house in Winterland, and it's a fairly new house, and we have it valued at $526,000, $390. And according to the owners, you know, we have it as good quality of construction, as they indicated to my appraiser at least twice that the materials used during building were very high-end materials. And so that's, so we have it as a good quality of construction. And then I know she's got some properties she wants to compare her property to, but none of them are sales. And I do agree with her that 515 Brook Drive is undervalued, and we will take care of that next year. And so now we'll move on to her.
Okay, Carolyn.
Yep, and I agree with Diane, and I just wanted to go on the record. I appreciate the work that her office does. It's not easy. And when I stopped in on the final day to file the secondary appeal, I can't remember the person's name, but I spoke with the person who appraised my house, and she was incredibly helpful in helping me understand how the value was reached. I'm not challenging the value on our house, which is good news for you guys. What my concern was is this is the Board of Equalization, and we're supposed to be paying comparably with our neighbors. And when she basically explained to me how it's done. And when I went and looked at the neighbors that I questioned originally, I noticed the information in your system is not accurate for those neighbors, which is why they are valued, in one case, $165,000 less than my house, when in fact it's bigger, much bigger, much higher end, and on the lake. So when I looked at it, it's $165,000 less than the value of my house because your information isn't correct. And so I'm, and the other houses as well that I included in my comps, it's because the information that's on the website that you can see, the public information, it's not accurate. And so I will not ask for a change in my valuation. I'm just a little frustrated that my tax burden is significantly higher than people that have homes bigger and better than mine. So that's just kind of feedback, I guess, for the board. But yes, I'm not asking for any change in my valuation. I think it's more than fair.
And we intend to look into all of these these properties she brought to our attention and verify the information. And I know the one at 515 Brook is definitely undervalued, and I agree with you there.
Yeah, I mean, it was listed on your website of having only 1,312 square feet of living space, and it's 3,000. So.
Well, but the basement is always separate. It's a separate line than the first and second floor, and then we
Yeah,
missed
but
the
there's
second
also,
floor
there was also,
completely.
yeah, I know you've got all this stuff, so I'm not at all concerned, and I apologize for taking your time today, so I'm gonna get you back on schedule, George.
I get anxious about that schedule, don't I?
No, it's good.
So in essence, I'm recommending a denial.
And I'm okay with that.
Okay, and just to make sure I understand, so I see this form, the notice of determination. You did reduce the value based on her comments, and then a case was open trying to reduce the value further, and then that was withdrawn. Am I understanding correctly?
That's
Yes,
what I see.
yes,
It has already been reduced from 585,390 to 526,390. And then there was a request for an additional reduction to 400,000, which is being withdrawn. Is that correct?
That is correct. And that was only because my peers were valued at 361, 378, and 352. So almost 200,000 in some cases, less than me, when their houses are actually bigger. So with more bedrooms and everything else. So that was the foundation for my appeal, is my peers are significantly, like, not 50,000 less. We're talking 165, 173,000, significantly less.
I look forward to coming to your neighborhood barbecue.
Yeah, that's what I said. Back-to-back meetings with you guys today. It's all good.
If you have a little bit of time, I think Carolyn raises an interesting question. I mean, in my 4.5 years, I've never seen a homeowner come to complain that we're undercharging them for their taxes. And I know that there's a lot of homes and you have a limited staff, Diane. Like, how does it happen that people end up not getting the attention that they need? Is this something where you kind of sweep through the county in some kind of a fashion and houses are investigated every 4 or 5 turns? Or how is it that, I mean, because it does seem like, especially this year, we've run into a number of them, and the primary complaint of the applicant isn't that they feel like they're being treated unfairly, only that their neighbors are being treated extra fairly.
right.
Is it random sampling, or what? How do you go at it? Right.
Well, we use the sales to value properties, and we do an analysis, multiple regression analysis on the sales by neighborhood to determine our values, and adjustments and square footage and those type of things. And then they get applied to all of the unsolds. So if, it could be that those unsolds, our data is not good on those. And this is a good example of that some of this is just not our data, if we have square footage, if they've finished a basement and we don't know about it, not everybody pulls permits for stuff.
Yeah.
So we don't know everything. We try to, but it's not easy.
And
Yeah.
Go ahead, George.
I was going to say to Carolyn, I mean, it is a robust process, right? I mean, the office takes their first crack at it. You have a chance to come before the board. And if you don't like what we have to say, you have a chance to take it to another level. So it's not perfect, but I do feel like we put a lot of effort into it, and appreciate you coming before us today.
I suppose there's an algorithm that could be created that would go through our database and would look at some general high-level criteria that would at least flag things that might bring to our attention what you're talking about, Sean. Whether that's something our constituency would like us to invest our time in, and it wouldn't change the values of things. It would just float things to the surface that would then have to follow the state process and state law to be looked at. Whether our constituents would want us to spend our time and resources or any effort at all doing that is probably would take a big discussion.
Probably the undervalued homes wouldn't want us to.
That's
That's
exactly what I'm referring to. Is some people might think that we could find better things to do with our time, I'm sure.
And my time.
Well, Diane is now aware of 3 in my neighborhood. So.
Yep.
So typically when one of the features that affects the value of a home is changed, you find out about that because there was a building permit. And
yes.
So when we have a non-permitted improvement, that doesn't end up in your data. And then I've noticed like other things, like people have comments on topography. Sean made a really great observation that we hear a fair amount of examples where those would cause a home to be overvalued. I think if the process is random, we'd assume that there's a similar number of cases on the other side. And it would be interesting to know what the impacts of a more accurate data set would be, given all the services that our constituents expect of us.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I was referring to, is to create that algorithm that would flag those things for us, act like a screen or a filter and find them. And that would be an interesting conversation and program to implement.
Okay. Well, thank you, Carolyn, for affording us time to explore this a little further. My understanding of the process is better. Do we have, I guess we do need to take action to deny this because it was presented. So do we have a motion?
Sure. Let me go right back down to the bottom. Move that we uphold the assessor's recommendation to deny the request on case 21-08.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Settle. Thank you, Ms. Hone.
Thank you, Carolyn.
We'll see you at Glacier Fest. Okay, here in 3 minutes, we have our COVID update. If Randy, if that affords you enough time to overboil your coffee, be my guest. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, I could start the next pot. That's what I'll do. That was.
Hiya, Beth. How are you?
Doing good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Morning, Tim. We'll get started as soon as the team is all here.
Okay. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Even better. I guess I'll just do a quick check to see if Sean and Randy are behind those cameras or behind those off cameras.
Yeah, this is Sean. I'm here.
Okay, let's give it just another moment. Okay, looks like we're all here. Dr. Ryan, the floor is yours.
Thanks, George. Good morning, everyone. So I thought I'd start out with 3 pictures because they say a lot. This is new cases in the United States. Pay particular attention to the far right in that giant upslope. That's about a 22% grade. New cases occurring in the United States, our 7-day average is now 85,866 per day. Significant increase over every week since February. How do I forward this? This is US hospitalization admissions. Again, similar 22% grade slope on the far right. As of Monday, yesterday, we reached a new milestone since February with 50,000 Americans currently hospitalized due to COVID across the United States. We haven't seen that sort of number since February. So.
Dr. Ryan, on that slide, just maybe as a reminder to myself and everybody, I see the tail looks sloped downwards all the way on the right, and that's mostly due to missing data. Is that correct? Like you always see that on the end of the graph.
Correct. That's what that gray bar is. That gray bar and that the vertical gray bar indicates that data is not yet complete. So that slope will actually probably get steeper. There's usually a lag of several days, sometimes a week, of hospitalization data as it comes in. So yeah, you're correct. This gray area to the right is not 100% accurate, but it's only going to get worse. It's not like it's going to get better. Similarly, here in Colorado, our case counts have gone up just as they have nationally. And similarly on this, the far right, this gradient that you see here, the upslope, is not yet complete data. So that will actually get worse as the data is fully filled out. Then let's go over the general numbers that we see. So nationally, we have exceeded now 35 million confirmed cases across the United States since the beginning of this pandemic. Case rate, as I stated, is now 85,866 per day as a 7-day average, and that is a 51.6% change in the last 7-day average compared to last week in the wrong direction. Hospitalizations have changed, 32.8% increase over the 7-day average last week. Fatalities, and it's strange, in putting this slide together this morning, these numbers together, I had to adjust the fatality number 3 times because it changed in the time it took me to write this. 769,000 Americans are dead. Current rate is 388 per day as a 7-day average, and that is increasing as well. Test positivity rate, 8.3% across the country. Contributing factors, there's only 2 really at this point, the unvaccinated and the Delta variant. Vaccination rate across the country, we are at 49.7% are fully vaccinated, 57.8% have received at least 1 dose. And for all those folks out there who've only received 1 dose, you are as unprotected as the unvaccinated if you do not receive your 2nd dose. Just to be clear. Colorado, similar trend here. The current number of daily cases continues to rise over the last 4 weeks here in Colorado, now in excess of 798 per day as a 7-day average. Our 2-week cumulative incident rate is now 171 per 100,000. Hospitalizations have increased 11.6% across the state over the last week alone. Currently, 33% of ICU ventilators are in use. That's an increase over last week, and 82% of hospital ICU beds are currently in use. Partly because some of our neighboring states don't have a medical infrastructure to speak of, so they all come here. Wyoming is case in point. Currently, there are 353 individuals with an additional 52 who are under investigation, currently hospitalized for confirmed COVID. So well over 400. Test positivity rate is now 5.2% across the states. Major contributing factors to the spread here, the unvaccinated, the Delta variant. Vaccination rate, you'll notice, is a significant increase. This is due to the fact that CDPHE has finally gotten the data from veterans Veteran Affairs. And so any veteran, current military who've been vaccinated, they were not in our prior database as vaccinated. So that data was just updated yesterday. So we are now at 70.6% of eligible population have received at least one dose in our county. Fully immunized, we are at 64.7% of the eligible population is currently fully immunized in the state of Colorado. In Clark Creek County, similarly, not going well. The last week, we've had 14 cases, 22 in the last 2 weeks, and 508 to date. Hospitalizations at 25, fatalities at 3. Our 2-week cumulative incident rate is now at 195 per 100,000. Our 2-week test positivity rate is at 8.3%. Significant jump. Sorry, someone's calling me. Major contributing factors, the unvaccinated and the Delta variant. They are the sole causes of this pandemic as we speak in America. Testing updates. We are continuing testing across the county. We have testing on Tuesdays, and that has not changed from 10 to 2 in Idaho Springs. It is free of charge. It is no appointment necessary, just show up. Similarly, in Jefferson County at the fairgrounds, they have testing 6 days a week, free of charge, no appointment necessary, just show up. So testing is readily available 6 days a week within 15 miles of anyone's home in the county.
For the benefit of our, Tim, for the benefit of our listeners, can you state again exactly where that testing spot is here in Clear Creek County?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, it's in Idaho Springs. It is near the rec center, is between the bus barn for the school district and the old high school football field. There's a gravel parking lot in between those two that the testing is in there. You pull in and it'll be quite obvious. It's labeled quite well. So
thank you.
That is every Tuesday from 10 to 2, free of charge, no appointment necessary. We did see a significant jump in folks getting tested last week from the prior several weeks. So demand is certainly increasing across the entire state. Vaccine updates. We are continuing to vaccinate as often as we possibly can. We are having clinics, continuing to have clinics Wednesdays. We have one tomorrow at the Resource Center from 10 to 2. Again, no appointment necessary. Just show up. Next week, we will not have one primarily because we're moving and we won't be able to carry one out. We will have one the following week, though, on the 18th. And then the following, another break of 1 week and the 1st. So all of that is on our website in terms of when we're doing vaccine clinics, but continuing to do vaccinations at the jail on a weekly basis. And then we'll have one at the back to school night at the middle school, high school as well. Any questions?
Just one, when did you say the hours of that testing was? Hours and days of the testing?
Testing is Tuesdays.
Tuesdays only from 10 to 2, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. In Jefferson County, it is 6 days a week. I believe their hours are the same, 10 to 2, but I would check the Jefferson County website to confirm that.
We have some comments here from a watcher asking for more frequency, more locations. Looking at the test positivity rate of 8.3%, I think that indicates that we're probably not testing enough. I don't think have we in the past during the height of the pandemic, did we have more locations or more opportunities, or is this about status quo for us?
No, I think at one point we had it 2 days a week, but in the same location, primarily because the contract is with the state. It is not with our county. The state has the contract with COVID Check Colorado, so they dictate terms. And we're also going to be using them and have used them in the jail, which we test every week, as well as the schools. We'll be testing there twice a week. All unvaccinated staff will be tested twice a week.
Okay.
So we are continuing to battle the avalanche, for lack of a better term, of absolute misinformation. It's never in history, human history, has this level of misinformation been out there and consumed the level it is now, where facts are dismissed and misinformation is adopted instantly. It's mind-boggling. So it's sort of akin to if the U.S. Forest Service comes and tells you really need to prune your property because your house is going to burn down, and your neighbor tells you don't need to, and you choose to listen to your neighbor instead of the U.S. Forest Service, and 6 months later your house burns down and you regret it. Yeah, that's where we're at right now.
We have a question here. What have you seen? Have you seen an uptick in vaccine interest in the last 2 weeks?
Slight, but not near where we need to be, in my opinion. We have probably another 500 or so individuals, 600 individuals to go to reach 75 to 80% of our population, which would be ideal. We have not seen a wave, absolutely not. A trickle, I think, is a better description of what we've seen over the last several weeks, if that. So. And also want to state, because there's so much misinformation out there, several things. The first is individuals who receive one dose who are afraid to receive the second. Any mild-like symptoms you may have are a far cry from what you will feel if you get COVID. One is several days of cold-like symptoms. The other is several weeks of, for lack of a better term, hellish-like symptoms. So that's the reality of getting a second dose. It's also the reality in terms of what we're seeing in breakthrough cases. So there are individuals who are fully vaccinated who in fact have become COVID positive. That's expected. We've been saying that from the very beginning because you're only 90 to 95% protected. So there is still a chance that you get COVID. But the difference between those who are unvaccinated and vaccinated is cold-like symptoms for a couple of days or weeks of severe symptoms and or hospitalization. Because right now, 99.999% of those who are hospitalized or are dying are the unvaccinated, not the vaccinated. So that's the facts. Can't really argue with facts. Some people try, but you know.
So it occurs to me that, and I've been looking around for it and haven't found it. When I believe we have a public health order in effect that establishes a series of thresholds by which the board would need to retake up a conversation about public health orders. I'm not clear right now on what those thresholds are, but it seems like the numbers we have may be getting us in that neighborhood where we might at least maybe I could benefit from being refreshed on what those metrics are. And I don't know that that's like something that we need to get to right now, but maybe for next week we could take a look at how I believe we're in a clear phase monitoring with a couple of thresholds that would cause us to have to take up a conversation about public health orders.
And George, I just, I'm going to send that to the board now. It was Public Health Order 21-02 that set forth the thresholds, and I'll send it to Tim as well so he has it in front of him.
Thank you.
So at this point, from my perspective, I'm trying to take a more surgical scalpel-like approach to protecting what is Clear Creek County. First and foremost, have engaged with the school system for many weeks now. They are going to be mandating masks for everyone, K through 12 and all staff, and require testing among unvaccinated staff twice a week to identify them as quickly as possible and get them out of the building, as our primary goal is to educate kids every day we can. Similarly, the county has implemented, as you are aware, for unvaccinated folks to wear masks while they're in the office. I would extend that to vaccinated folks as well, because we have breakthrough cases and because we have some folks who have extended exposure to said unvaccinated individuals in the workplace, meaning they're literally within feet of them for hours on end, day after day after day. I would suggest that we make that all county employees, regardless of vaccine status. And trust me, it is not my choice. It is not my preference. I would really love to get rid of masks, except we have half of America who, for lack of a better term, don't seem to care about the rest of us who have chosen to make ourselves protected. So at this point, to preserve the continuity of service in our county, I gave the same exact advice to the business community yesterday in Idaho Springs. Their number one asset after their buildings is their employees. Without employees, they don't have businesses. So my recommendation to them was to implement mask mandates among all employees. We can't control the patrons. It's a losing battle, and it's a battle that most businesses are not willing to fight. So my recommendation, given that fact, is to implement mandates in their own businesses, which they have the legal authority to do, their own business, to help protect their own employees, both vaccinated and unvaccinated. If we want to keep our economy hobbling along as it is in Clear Creek County, we need to protect, and they need to protect their employees. There's a shortage, as we all know, so every single one of them is critically important. And doing all that we can to protect them is paramount. I thought of an analogy this morning because lots of people have different arguments about, oh, you're being overreactive, et cetera. Ask yourself this: are you the person who, when you get in a car, put your seatbelt on before you do anything else? Are you the person who gets in the car and during the accident thinks to yourself, oh shit, I should have put my seatbelt on, and quickly tries to put it on? That's the difference between prevention and preventing something that you know is likely to happen, and reaction. As an epidemiologist and a public health director, I am not in the world of reacting. I'm in the world of preventing additional cases, preventing additional hospitalizations, and preventing deaths. It's my goal. If, not everybody likes that. People want to be on their own and left on their own. Fine. I'm trying to protect the other 9,985 people who do care and who do want to be protected and who do care about their broader community. That's my goal.
So I have a question that relates to that, and it's with regard to the vaccinated versus unvaccinated. Obviously, if we know, and we've heard you express, and we've read it in other places, that among the vaccinated, when we do get it, our symptoms are likely to be minimal and short-lived. But we also know that when those people go in and get tested, they test positive, which indicates that they have something that can shed. So isn't the reason for that, a primary reason for that, between the vaccinated and the vaccinated lies this unvaccinated person, or excuse me, between the unvaccinated and unvaccinated lies this vaccinated person who might get it and for whom the consequences may be minimal, but who acts as a transmission node between these other two people with whom he or she come in contact. Is that correct? Is that a fair assessment?
It is. So even as a vaccinated person with the Delta variant, we now know, as science evolves and as data is collected, we know that as a vaccinated person, you can become COVID positive and you can transmit the Delta variant to other unvaccinated or vaccinated individuals, correct? So it behooves all of us to wear a mask and be as protected as we possibly can when we go out in public. There's far too many people still out there who are completely unprotected, and don't wear a mask, strangely enough. So this pandemic will continue on as long as we have those people out there. We would all love this to go away, but the reality is it isn't going anywhere as long as we have half of American population unvaccinated and unwilling to do the most basic things.
Dr. Ryan, I have a question. Maybe you can help me out with this. We have currently the public health order that has mitigation phases. We did this several months ago. We're currently in a phase 2 observation period, May 16th through August 15th. So it's ending soon. As I believe George had mentioned, we're in level clear at this moment, technically, under this, but there is a snapback provision, and I wanted just to ask you about it. It talks about we would snap back to other phases and mask mandates and such if there's a 14-day incidence rate equal to or greater than 300 cases per 100,000, and a percent positivity equal to or greater than 7.5%. I don't think we're there yet, but we may be, and this observation phase ends August 15th anyway. It sounds to me like you're going to end up recommending a potential change, and I just wanted to give the board an opportunity to discuss that in advance, because it is something that we would want to bring up very possibly at the next meeting, if not the meeting right after that.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, we're certainly headed towards that. We've achieved one of the two, and have doubled our numbers over the last several weeks to where we are now. So another doubling is certainly within the realm of possibility.
So just something for the board to consider. I don't know if you want to have a discussion on that now, or if you just want to put a placeholder on the next agenda or the one after that to address the public health order that I had sent out just a little bit ago. That's resolution 21-02 that the Board of Health had passed, I believe, on April 27th.
And I know those metrics match very closely with, there's a lot of versions of these public health orders out there. So that's something that maybe I have on my mind to just kind of check back in on over the week. And I will state that all of these metrics are with reference to whether we would go back to a dial and capacity limits. My understanding is that a much friendlier to our economy intervention is to require face masks. So I just wanted to state that that's my opinion right here. And I'll just reiterate that I don't think we can do this alone. I think we need a regional approach. And I hope that if case rates continue to go this way, then I don't anticipate they'll stop unless an intervention happens. We'll need to start to have those conversations.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. And I know that we will come to the not illegitimate discussions about the effectiveness of doing that when everyone around you, and as far as the eye can see, hasn't also done it. But I kind of relate it back to Dr. Ryan's seatbelt analogy a minute ago, which is just because nobody around you is wearing seatbelts doesn't mean they might not give you an advantage.
And I did talk to both Dr. Comstock, who's the public health director in Jefferson County, and Dr. Douglas, who's the public health director in Tri-County. I spoke to both of them this morning at length, just to sort of keep my fingers in the water and see what the general census is around us. Denver, as you heard, are mandating vaccinations for the city and county employees there. If you refuse a vaccine, you need to be tested several times a week. It sounds like Jefferson County and Tri-County are moving in that same direction, using vaccine is the only thing that is going to get us out of this globally. There is nothing else. Masks certainly help and go a long way, but as many people as we have in this country who are unvaccinated, half of those refuse to wear a mask. So vaccines seem to be the approach that Denver, Tri-County, and Jefferson County are taking, and beginning that conversation around mandating vaccines for any city or county employees. And for those who refuse, you're going to be tested until you're blue in the face for the foreseeable future, because there is no other way around it. You've basically painted them into a corner. And so mask mandates, as we have all experienced, are very difficult to enforce, particularly for businesses, and it puts businesses in a very difficult situation, one for which they don't want to be in, and two, one that is a losing battle for them. So Tri-County and Jefferson County seem to be focusing their attention rather on vaccinations and forcing people's hands. You either get vaccinated or you stay home or you get tested every single week, several times a week. That's going to be your reality moving forward. It's the only way, to be quite frank, out of this. Passing a broad mask mandate for the entire county isn't going to bring us any closer to vaccination rates that we want. But those sorts of mandates, as others are beginning to adopt, are what are going to get us out of this. So that's just what I heard this morning from those two. And so just wanted to let you know what's going on out there. And it's the same policy the school district in Clear Creek has already adopted, so.
Okay, well, I note it's 11:30. Do we have any other questions or comments? Peter?
No, I was looking at our other orders and I'm trying to decide if I know we kept the contact tracing in place, but I'm looking and it looks like we've rescinded all of the face covering orders. Now, whether we, as part of that, technically rescinded the phase structure that we had set up, I believe that our subsequent resolution may actually have done that. So I don't even know that the snapback provision would actually apply anymore based on 2104, which was a subsequent order of the Board of Health.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
That would be something interesting to look into. And, you know, of course, nothing would prevent us from looking at those metrics and viewing them as the threshold we viewed them as, to have a conversation.
Is there anything specific that you want from us next week, based on what you heard this week?
Peter, it sounds like you're 90% of the way there, but just maybe a review of really where we're at, what's in effect today. And if it certainly wasn't my intent, for example, to remove the allowing for contact tracing portions of the public health order. So if that is the case, then that's something we might want to take up. I don't know if it really changes things on the ground or not. So be happy to hear from Dr. Ryan on that.
Yeah, no, I just as a point of clarification, because even one of my staff were confused by what they hear on TV and radio from the powers that be. The legal authority to isolate and quarantine and shut down businesses and schools due to outbreaks is in state statute. It has been, it will be, and it is now. That hasn't changed. It doesn't require a local public health order. It doesn't require anything. The public health director has the legal authority to do that. Included in that, obviously, is contact tracing. If you are a known case and we call you and isolate you, you are legally obligated to isolate. And you are also legally obligated to quarantine. That hasn't changed. It doesn't change based on whatever anyone says that you hear. That's in state statute and it has not changed. It's not going to change. It's there for the protection of the broader community.
Okay, thank you. The next thing on our agenda is we were going to take up, assuming nobody has any further comment. We had tabled the, I'm speaking slow while I get back to that page. We had tabled the update on the clinic or continued it to now to finish that conversation in executive session. Therefore, I move the board into executive session for the following purposes.
Pursuant to CRS 24-64024A for the county attorney to meet with the Board of County Commissioners for the purposes of receiving direction related to the lease, transfer, or sale of any real, personal, or other property interest in property located on Minor Street known as the Clear Creek County Collaborative Care Center.
We had a really quick HR contingent also in case we have time. It's like literally a 10-minute thing.
Do we, under new case law, do we have to, I think there's a process for that, right?
For announcing an executive session or for the personnel matters?
For the
Well, the
personnel
combination of
matters.
the two, the combination to put those two together into one thing.
My understanding was that if we intend to talk about it, person needs to be notified, they get to ask to be there.
Not that I'm aware of, not that's changed on the personnel matter, but I will check it. In an abundance of caution, just to be safe, I'd suggest that we defer that. I can read the other reason, but I'm not aware of a change in the law at this point.
You're the attorney, so if you think we can do that, let's do it.
No, in light of the fact that you've raised that, I'd rather be double sure and check into it to be sure.
Okay.
Well, then from now on, I'm going to listen to my cousin Charlie on COVID instead of Tim.
Yeah.
Only kidding. Sorry.
All right.
I'll second the motion.
Right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
And I'm going to send the link now. So I believe, are we now moving into executive session and we won't be returning?
Yes, the board will now adjourn into executive session. No written minutes will be kept, no decisions will be made. This meeting will stay open until we return. We will not return with anything left on the agenda. We'll return simply to adjourn. So thank you, everybody, for your time today. Okay, our executive session has concluded. No written minutes were kept, no decisions were made. And we are back here in public session. Seeing nothing further on the agenda, we are adjourned. Our
Thank
next
you.
regularly scheduled meeting is Tuesday, the 10th at, I don't know that we have a start time,
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks.